Hey guys, it's the Investing Panda here. I'm so glad that you clicked on this video and that you're watching it because I believe it's going to be the first step to financial freedom, to creating $1 million. Now, beware, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, okay? This is not about selling some products on Amazon or buying GameStop stock. Although that if you made some money in that, good for you, that's awesome. So what I'm going to show you in this video is that anybody can make $1 million, and making $1 million or becoming a millionaire is not reserved only for the people who come from rich backgrounds or have a lot of money or who have studied in the best universities in the country, or anybody who has to have a ton of investing knowledge and stock knowledge. Now, having stock knowledge helps and getting bigger returns, but what I'm going to show you here is for the very beginners. How can someone without any background in investing, any knowledge in stocks, can become a millionaire? So if that's you, this video is for you. All right, so let's get started. The first thing that you need to know is compound interest. You need to understand what that is and why it's so important. So compound interest is an amazing thing, and not many people know about it or understand it. So here it is. The concept of compound interest is you put some money down in an investment, and that investment gives you an interest on your money. And then the interest, in turn, gets reinvested, and that interest gives you more interest on top of it. And it goes on and on and on. So the interest keeps getting reinvested and added to the principal keeps growing, and then the interest over time, because the principal gets bigger, the interest that you get gets bigger. So it sort of works like a snowball. It starts small, but then the interest gets added on to the principal, and you start earning more and more and more each year. And it's a wonderful thing, so much so that with enough time, you've gotten to $1 million, maybe even more, and the majority of that money didn't come from your own pocket, but it came from the investment, from the interest from your investment. So it's an amazing thing. Now, there's two sides to compounding interest, right? So I just told you the good side, where you are earning it and where you're earning compound interest. But there's another side to compound interest, and that side is if you're paying compound interest. So an example of that in real life are credit cards, auto loans, you name it. So any type of debt that you have where you're paying an interest, the person on the other side, the lender, is getting the compound interest and you're paying the compound interest. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you got to get rid of all debt, although I am a fan of being debt-free, and actually my wife and I are debt-free. Ding! So it took us a few years, and I'll probably make another video sharing our journey on how we got rid of our auto loans, how we got rid of our credit card loans, and how we got rid of our student loans. So anyways, that's for another video. So the reason you're here, compound interest, right? How to make $1 million the easy way. So just remember that compound interest, you earn interest, and then your interest earns interest. So the money gets bigger over time, and you're earning it, and it helps you reach your goal. Now, the second thing that you need to understand is how do you spend your money? So if you don't have a good grasp of how much you make and how much of that you have left over at the end of the month, then that's the second step. So understanding what you spend your money on is going to allow you to really evaluate your expenses and scrutinize your expenses and realize, okay, wow, I'm spending a ton of money on X, right? And X is a want, not a need. And it happens with the small expenses. So the small expenses are usually the sneakiest, right? Because if we're about to spend thousands of dollars, we're going to evaluate, okay, does it make sense to spend this? Do I have enough money to spend it, right? We're usually more careful in evaluating before we make $1,000 expense or more. But with the small ones, right? Eating out or getting a cup of coffee, all great things that my wife and I do time to time, but those can really add up monthly. So do you know how much you spend on coffee or eating out each month, right? And do you know how much you're left over after all expenses have been paid? So that's step number 2. Make a list of all of your expenses, make a list of all of the income you receive each month, and go through the expenses and categorize them, which ones are needs and which ones are wants. And the needs obviously need to stay. We all need electricity, we need internet, etc. But really scrutinize the wants. Now, can the wants be reduced, or can you remove the wants completely? Totally up to you. But what I suggest you do is to create a budget and to determine, okay, how much money can I save each month and how much can I invest? So that's step number 2. The last step number 3, is consistency. So consistency is the key to all of this, right? Because you can understand compounding interest, and you can understand and have under control all of your expenses, and actually create a budget and save. Say you're able to invest 15% each month. But if you don't do these things consistently, then they're not gonna work, right? So if you have a budget but you don't stick with it, right, then it's not gonna work. If you're not investing consistently and every month, it's not gonna work. If you're going overboard on your expenditures each month, it's not gonna work. It's just like working out. The most fit and athletic people in the world are the ones who train consistently, who work out consistently. So it's the same with investing. Investing and being financially free is a sport, and it requires discipline, and then it requires consistency. So you apply that and you'll get there in no time. So just to recap really quick, the three main things that I think build the foundation to being able to invest and to creating $1 million over time are understanding what compound interest is and how compound interest can work with you or can hurt you. The second one is understanding your expenditures and taking control over your expenditures to the point where the amount that you're spending is less than the amount that you make each month. And third, consistency. Being consistent in your savings and your investing, and being consistent with the amount of expenses that you have each month, and staying within that budget that you set out for yourself and your family. So with those 3 things, you are on your way and ahead of so many people when it comes to making $1 million. Now, okay, so you're here and saying, okay, but how does that make me $1 million, and how long does it take, and how much do I have to invest? Okay, so what I'm going to show you next is how much do you have to invest monthly to make $1 million by the age of 65 if you start at the age of 30. So if you start at the age of 30, let's assume that you start with $1,000, and let's utilize the average annualized rate from the S&P, which is the major stock index, from inception to now, which is about 10%. So let's assume 10% return year over year. Let's assume you start with $1,000 and you're 30. How much do you have to put each month to make $1 million by the age of 65? And that number is $300. So if you start with $1,000, if you're 30 and you start with $1,000 and you put $300 each month, you can make $1 million by the age you're 65. How amazing is that? That is awesome. So now what I want to point out is that if you start earlier, so let's say you start at the age of 20, it gets even better. So if you start early, and this is really going to make you visualize how important of a variable is time. So It's not just amount how much you get returned, but it's also time. So if you start 10 years earlier at 20, and let's assume the same annualized rate of 10%, and let's also assume you start with $1,000. The amount that you have to invest at 20 is $110. $110. If you invest $110 at the age of 20, you start with 1,000. By the age you're 65, you're going to have $1 million. That's how much 10 extra years help you. Why? Because of the compound interest. You know, by the age that this person is 30, by the time that they're 30, they've already earned 10 years of compound interest, and now that interest is compounding more and more, and it gets larger and larger, and then the returns get a lot juicier the more times that the more time that pass by. So that is the beauty of compounding interest. So hopefully, if you're watching this and you're in your 20s, or you're in your teens, or you're in your 30s, hopefully I've encouraged you to set up a budget, to start investing. And I'm gonna create other videos. If you don't know how to invest, I'm gonna create more videos on how to invest, how to pick stocks, the different vehicles. So hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel, like the video if this is helping you or is encouraging you so that other people can see it. And I'm so excited for this journey. My wife and I are actually on this journey together to making our first $1 million. And in other videos in the future, I'm gonna share with you our portfolio and how much we have there, how we've invested, and then the stocks that we have there. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, enable the alerts, smash the like button, and then I'm gonna see you soon. Thanks, guys. Man, it's so hot in this thing to be financially. All right, let's try this again. 3, 2, 1.